Whilst the main mushroom season has kind of come to a close now, this is the perfect time of year to go scouting for some of the more colourful fungi out there. And just before Christmas, I ventured up to the Peak District to go for one of my last mushroom forages of 2023.
Oh, you found a parrot?
Yeah.
Sick!
I suggested that we should maybe go into a forest for a bit more of a sheltered location, but Chris insisted on a moorland mushroom hunt.
We are out in Edale today and it is really, really rainy and really windy. I think we're at the tail end of a storm. All of the heather's starting to change on the moorlands just behind me. It's a beautiful reddy burgundy colour. It's really windy today, but it is beautiful. You can't really see very far because it's very, very foggy, but it's still quite pretty. We're off out hunting for some mushrooms. I've collected a little colourful basket full of wax caps, random puffball in there. How are you doing, Chris? Just found a little flush of these psilocybes similantiatas, or liberty caps, or magic mushrooms. Look how beautiful they are. This classic little nipple shape at the top of the mushroom. It's quite a pointed little umbo, and they've got striations down the cap. The cap's quite glossy. Then often at the bottom of the mushroom, you'll see this quite dark strip here, and that's when it's starting to spore. All of the spores are starting to drop, and it's left this kind of coloured band here.
Whilst it's been quite a mild year, I wasn't expecting these liberty caps to still be out because they're often gone by the time the wax caps are in full force. You can find liberty caps from August through to November, but in mild years you can sometimes find clusters all the way through until January.
Look at that view. I love how you can see all of the mist rolling across the tops of the hills over there.
Whilst he was off ahead, I found a couple of soggy amanitas and a load of elder branches that were on the floor covered in jelly ear. But it was the wax caps that I came for, and this trusty spot did not disappoint. Wax caps are one of my favourite mushrooms, and they're becoming increasingly rare in the UK due to habitat loss. Wax caps love grazed, nutrient-poor grassland, and they prefer pasture land that's been unimproved for at least 30 years. And because of our overuse of chemicals and fertilisers, this habitat is becoming less and less common. Though wax caps in general are on the decrease, and there are a number of wax caps on the red data list, when they do happen upon these pockets of unimproved pasture land and have the opportunity to thrive, they can be locally abundant. Many of the wax caps are edible, including this chunky fella here. This is the meadow wax cap, and it's one of the largest of all of the species of wax cap, and luckily one of the most common as well. Another edible wax cap, and one of my favourites because they look just like little rubies all over the grassland, this is the scarlet wax cap. There are a few red wax caps, but scarlet wax caps are one of the most common, and they're a lot smaller than their lookalikes. You can often find scarlet wax caps in huge numbers, and you can see here that this was a pretty impressive patch. Just a bit further down the field I stumbled across the crimson wax cap, and this is a much larger mushroom. You can see that it's fairly stocky, a little bit less common than the scarlet wax cap, and less common than that is the splendid wax cap, and I've only seen this mushroom once, and that was last year on this field actually, and that looks fairly similar to the crimson wax cap, but it's got much more of a twisted stipe to it. It can sometimes have folds and looks like it splits into two.
Look at those girls. They're just stunning, aren't they? These witches' caps are just starting to blacken. Can you see? Pretty cool. Love wax caps. Chris has just found parrot wax caps. These, you can kind of see here, they change colour from like a greeny, yellowy colour through all different sorts of shades really. And they're really quite pretty. That one looks quite cool. Look at the couple ones.
It's called several
traffic lights.
Yeah, traffic lights.
Yeah.
And the traffic lights, which come on, right for mouse. So there's like, trying to cross the road here.
This is another hallucinogenic mushroom and our second psilocybe of the day. This is Psilocybe fimateria, and it is also a mushroom that loves to grow on grazed pasture land, but it's a coprophilous fungi, which means it loves dung, and in the case of Psilocybe fimateria, it grows exclusively on decomposing cow and horse dung.
There's some common sorrel down here. Identifiable by the little fish tails at the bottom, and it's zingy, lemony flavour. One of my favourite sorrel. There's lots of different types of sorrel in this country. What you found?
White ones.
Oh yeah. More of those club fungi. The yellow ones are golden spindles. These are white spindles.
Spindles are another indicator species for unimproved grassland habitat, and that lets us know that this particular meadow hasn't had its soil disturbed for quite a number of years.
No, it's a Staria. Got this gorgeous, gorgeous bluey, greeny kind of grey colour into them. Let me pick one and show you. So look how gorgeous these are.
This is a pretty cool one to find because you don't see that blue-green colouring in mushrooms very often. This is the Staria pseudocyanea, or the Peppi roundhead, and it's a really interesting little mushroom because it smells exactly like ground black pepper. At this point the wind was really starting to pick up, so we decided to go down to the bottom of the hill to the little woodlands to see what other treasures we could find. So carrying on with the club fungi theme, the first thing that I saw when I got to the woods was this wrinkled club fungi. And then just next to it, this one actually caught me off guard because at first I thought it was just a branch specimen of the wrinkled club fungus. But then I saw that the floor was absolutely littered with them. And on closer inspection, I saw that it was the white-crested coral fungus. These have got to be one of the prettiest little woodland mushrooms. This is the rosy bonnet and it's got a gorgeous pink colour. It's not one to add to the basket because it does have low levels of muscarine, but it's a really beautiful find nonetheless. My next find was Amethyst Deceivers, and lots of other foragers don't seem to rate these very much, but we love harvesting them and I think they make a really great bulk for tarts and soups and add into mushroom mixes as well. This is the Greasy Shank, or the buttercap, and whilst it is an edible mushroom, it's not considered one of the tastiest. The caps are generally preferred over the tough stems, but if you're in a survival situation, it is a good mushroom to know about. These are awesome little mushrooms. Leoscia lubrica, or actually the green cap mushrooms, are Leoscia viscosa, and these are jelly baby mushrooms. They're not listed as edible, and that's not because they make you immediately sick per se, but because of their cumulative toxic effects. So these mushrooms do contain mild toxins that over time could potentially make you sick. I have seen a fair few recipes to make these into gummy sweets, so like Sour Patch gummy sweets, because of their gelatinous texture. So while some field guides list these as toxic and some list jelly babies as edible, I imagine if you're just having a few as a treat every now and then, it's probably going to be fine. As I run up to this patch, I thought that I'd come across a jackpot of wood bluets, but as I got closer, I realised it was a Clitocybe nebularis, or the clouded agaric. These make maybe one in 5, maybe 1 in 6 people sick when they eat them. So these used to be listed in the edible section of field guides, but you'll more often see them in the toxic section these days. I always find it quite fascinating what we list as toxic and edible, because, for example, chicken of the woods makes around 1 in 10 people sick, and we still regard that as quite a highly sought after and prized mushroom. So is that just because it's quite impressive looking and tasty, and maybe we list other mushrooms that are a little bit more common as poisonous because maybe they're just not worth the hassle? On the way home, I gathered some rose hips that I ended up mixing with some apple cider vinegar and honey to turn into an oxymel to ward off any signs of cold or flu over the winter season.